Ekam aksharam hridi nirantaram bhasate swayam likyate katham. हृदय कुहर मध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहम् इति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मुच्यता तानचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं मुक्तिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तत भावशुद्धिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भावतः कोऽहं भावयुतः कुतो वरदिह दृष्टात्मनिष्ठात्मना सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः विभाति स्वयं सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं. Namo Ramana. With Bhagavan's immense grace, we have been meditating on the verses of Sri Dakshinamurthy Stotram. The original in Sanskrit is by Bhagavad Pada Adi Shankara, and we have been relying on the Tamil translation by Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. We have come to verse number 6, which, as we saw in the segregation or analysis done for us by Surinagama in letters and Kanakamal in the commentaries, we find that the first three verses are about the world being the self. The next three verses, 4, 5, and 6, are about the jiva or the limited self being in reality one with the self. And the 7, 8, 9 are about the Ishvara, the light by which the jiva and the world are revealed. That light is also the self, is about the verses 7, 8, and 9. And the last verse, the 10th verse, is the Falashruti. We are in verse number 6, which is the last of the Jiva verses. And of course, just like Mandukya Upanishad, we find one of the ways in which you can look at 4, 5, 6 is that 4 is about the waking state, 5 is about the dream state, and 6 is about deep sleep state. And from each of the states, the reality of the individual is looked at. One can see Nana Chidra Gadautarastita Mahadipa Prabhabhaswaram Yanam Yasyatu Chakshuradhikarana Dwara Bahispandate. So it is the one part from which through the Indriyas, the one Mahadipam goes out to experience the waking state. But then there is further analysis about the Atmaswarupa done where not obviously by the Indriyas, which reveal the waking state, but in the mind. So the mental divisions are akin to dream state. When considered as Sukshma, the Sukshma Sharira is considered, when you directly look at it, as the Adhara for the Stula and make the Stula also as dream, then one clearly sees that the Sukshma Sharira called the mind is clearly dream-like, and it is all the content of one consciousness, one mind. But then it divides itself as, it identifies itself as Deham, Pranam, Apindriyan, Yapichalam, Buddhim, Cha, Shunyam, Viduhu, and how that identification with those upadhis lead to various branches of the Vedanta interpretation, the various schools of interpretation in Hinduism that we have, depending on the upadhi to which the school is identified with. And the Acharya calls all of them, including the Shunyavadi. There the Shunyavadi is part of the mind. That is the analysis contained in the mind. The Shunya is one of the identifications. What happens? This Mahavyamoha Samharine, the Ekam Sat or the Guru Swarupam, once we meditate on it as the Dhyana Lakshya or carry out the Vichara into it, it reveals to us that all this is only the Ekam Sat, and all the Mahavyamoham, the Maya, is completely destroyed by the grace of the Guru. So those two parts were there in the previous verse. That is the Upadhi Nishedaha and Guru Upadeshena, Guru Anugrahena, Maya Samachadana. The Maya being removed. Those were the two elements we saw from the dream state individual coming to the self. Here, the individual in the deep sleep is what is being looked at. The verse goes like this. Rahu grasta divakarendu sadrusho maya samachadanat. Rahu grasta divakarendu sadrusho maya samachadanat. Sanmatra karanop samharanato yobut sushupta puman pragvas swapsamiti prabodha samaye yah pratyabhignayate tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye namayidam Dakshinamurthaye. That is the Sanskrit verse. The Tamil translation by Bhagavan: Rahu Patri Iravi Tingal Ena Ulan Mayai Muda Paravulam Odunga Tungi Paravida Unarum Kalam Pura Urangina Nendre Bodhana Yavam Pumana Charachara Guruvam and the Dakshinamurti Potri. Bhagavan adds this Charachara Guruvam when the deep sleep state is transcended. So, Rahu Patri Iravi Tingal, Yena Vulan Maya Muda, Paravulam Udunga Tungi, Paravida Unarum Kalam, Puravuranginana Endre, Bodana Yavam Pumana, Charachara Guruvam and the Dakshinamurthy Potri. The Adishankarar, Bhagavad Padar, takes up the Shunyavadi exclusively here. We had seen that Shunyavadi was taken as one of the Vadis in the Sukshma. The Vadinaha could be that the body is the eye, the breath is the eye, the Indriyas are the eye, the Buddhi is the eye, or the void is the eye. These were the identifications of the various Vadis of identifying the relative I with the Upadis. And according to that identification, they would have their school. And void was one of the schools. But then what is discovered is that the one who is holding up the void or the Shunya, which is the generally in those days the Buddhists, one of the branches of Buddhism. Now, what the void person does is, for the Advaitin, he removes all the other blocks except the Atma Swarupa being also, the child also being thrown with the bath water. That happens with the Shunyavadi. But then, if we take the Shunyavadi apart from the other Vadis, he removes the other Vadis of the identification with the Deham, Pranam, Apindriyan, Yapichalam, Buddhim. All these Upadis identification, the void Vadinaha, they remove it for us. How they remove? We can even see that the Indriyas can hardly see, the sight being the highest of the Indriya. It can hardly see 20 feet. And when it sees 20 feet, it does not see beyond there, and it does not see in all the directions. So the microscopic jnana of the sight is accompanied by the macroscopic ignorance. That is, the knowledge and ignorance of the chakshuhu. It arises so disproportionately. We are so preoccupied with the sense of eye, but it arises in the support of so much of ignorance. And the hearing, we can simultaneously inquire that it is so limited. It can't hear beyond a limit, and if not supported by the brain or the mind, it cannot understand or discriminate between the sounds. The the gorilla, or I think it is the orangutan, they are said to have the same auditory system as the human beings. The same electrical changes or these vibrations in the hearing system is there. But then since the backup in the brain is not there, they don't hear the same things. They are not able to decipher the language and other things which we do. So we clearly understand that the Atma is not the body, can be easily seen by even the one who is holding the Atma to be the breath. That if the breath is held back beyond a point, you cannot use the Indriyas. And when the breath is subsiding in deep sleep, the Indriyas are obviously not in use. So the deep sleep is used by the void person, or the person in support of the Atma being Shunya. That means the Atma is not there at all, non-existent. They use the Anubhava or the experience of deep sleep. And using deep sleep as the basis, which Bhagavan we will find uses in the talks often, the one who argues in favor of the Atma being void, he negates or he does the nisheda of the other upadis. So it is enough for the Advaitin to do the Nishedha of the one who is inquiring into deep sleep, or one who is holding that the Atma is totally void. If we can show that the void theory is totally wrong and that the Atma is the Purna Atma, then we don't need to address the other arguers, because the other arguers are already defeated by the void arguer. Now, this is called as Mahamalla Vadam. That means if you are going to a Garadi, if you are going to a Garadi to challenge the people there, then you don't need to fight all the fighters trained in that Garadi. All you need to do is ask for the best Malla there, best fighter there, and defeat him. And that is the argument used by the Acharya in this. The Mahamalla in the area of these arguments is the one who is upholding and proving the void by using deep sleep. So all the Acharya now puts before himself is the task of showing that in deep sleep also the Atma exists. Now, what does the void arguing person say? The void arguing person says that in deep sleep, both the subject and the object are out of existence. They don't exist at all. Whereas what we have to prove is that Sanmatra, the subject, subsists as pure existence. As pure existence, Sanmatra. That the Sadvastu, as the Sadvastu, it subsists even in deep sleep. If one can prove this, then the Mahamalla of all arguers, called the one who is doing the argument of void, he is defeated thoroughly, and the Atma is proved to be not Shunya. On the contrary, it is proved to be the Purna Vastu. So, what in the beginning? How does this non-appearance of the subject and object take place at all? So there are obviously two ways. One is the void discussers or the void arguers' point of view, that really the subject and object do not exist at all. That is one possibility, that we are not able to feel the subject-object difference in the deep sleep. That we would come across this again and again. And this morning too, in the morning satsang, we were discussing how the anatma vastus are all not present in self-enquiry. So it is a self-enquiry group. So we were saying that even in the practice, you can understand that the awareness that was going towards the object is now turned and asked to seek its own source. So obviously the consciousness is there, bereft of thought, one can directly experience. The Sanmatra, the I exist, can be directly experienced in Atma Vichara. And one of the participants quite rightly opined that I don't know about self-enquiry, but then definitely in deep sleep, this non-self is not there. I can easily understand that. And we agreed that the deep sleep is easily understandable to all the people. Whereas that the Sanmatra is there in Atma Vicharam, that we can, even with the effort, we can realize that even sans thought, we exist, even in the practice of Atma Vicharam, that we can share in this group, which we have been coming through Atma Vicharam. When you let go of thought and hold the I, we know that in letting go of the thought, we are moving from dream state to deep sleep state. That the thought represents the Stula and Sukshma in the dream state. And by going to its absence, going to the absence of the thought, how do we go for the absence of the thought? By asking, for whom is this thought? To me, who am I? We come in the who am I, we come to Sanmatra, that we are holding our pure existence, and the absence of thought, which is the arrival of deep sleep state, does not deny our pure existence. So the import of this verse, without the circuitry of logic, we can directly understand those who practice Atma Vicharam. So that is point number one, that the import of this verse given by the Acharya, that in deep sleep, the pure subject exists, can be experienced by each one of us who is practicing Atma Vichar. But then the Acharya is writing the verse for the sake of everyone who have this objective sadhana of holding the Supreme Being as an object of attention. So he has to use logic to prove that the pure self subsists even in deep sleep. So let us begin at the beginning. What really happens in deep sleep? We saw that there could be one way in which the deep sleep experience could be possible, that in reality the void persons are correct, that the subject and object are really non-existent. Or there is another way that is possible, when do we not perceive something, that it is hidden from vision. It may exist, the the thing may exist, the vastu may exist, but when our vision is blocked, when we do the Girivalam, we will find that at one particular point, there is a small hill which we would have started seeing, that it is a small extension of the main hill, main Arunachala hill. There is a small hill. And even as we come from the Bengaluru road, we will start spying that. We'll start spying that we'll be able to see the small hill come. At one point in our relationship with the small hill, the main hill will be blocked from vision. But fortunately for us, we would have seen Arunachala before the small hill comes and blocks the vision. So, though Arunachala is there, right there, and it is much bigger than the small hill, it is blocked from vision, and therefore we are not able to perceive. So that is the second possibility. The void people are arguing that Arunachala is not there at all, therefore you are not able to see in deep sleep. But there is this possibility that the Atma Swarupa is present, but something comes and blocks its vision. Something happens there, that the what is not being perceived because of the blocking. And what is the analogy taken by the Acharya? The beautiful analogy of the eclipse. Rahu grasta divakare indu sadrisho Maya samachadana, by the by the coverage of self-ignorance, by the coverage of not knowing the pure subject, which we call as Maya. The not being aware of the pure subject, that the Tanmaya Nishtai, the absence of that, which cannot exist apart from the Tanmaya Purul, but that which is forgetful of itself, we call that, that becomes a power, it is called as Maya. And the deep sleep is nothing but the one merging into the Maya. The Maya mode. In what kind of analogy is taken by the Acharya? Rahu Grasta Divakarendu Sadrisho. In the eclipse of the sun, what comes in between the sun and the earth? We are obviously located in the earth. The moon, which is much, much smaller than the sun, but just like the small hill, it is very close to the earth. So it will start, and there will be, in some places on earth, you can see the full eclipse of the sun sometimes. And but still, the light will not be completely blocked, because the Surya is definitely there behind that. But then we can see that orb alone being completely darkened. We will not be able to see the Surya orb. Similarly, there is the blocking of the moon, because the moon is getting reflected light from the sun. When we ourselves come in the way, when we are on the other side of the sun, and we come in the way between the light of sun reaching the moon and block ourselves from the moonlight in night, that is when we see the lunar eclipse. It is our own head. That is why it is said to be an imaginary planet. Rahu is not a real planet. but it is an imaginary planet. It is called the shadow of the earth and moon. Rahu Grasta Divakarendu Sadrusho. Just like the moon and sun are really there, but then their vision is blocked by something called as Grahanam. Rahu Grasta Divakarendu Sadrusho. Maya Samachadana. In the same way, the Atma Swarupa in deep sleep is completely covered by the Maya, by self-ignorance. One of the teachers of Advaita would say that the individual goes to sleep inside one thought called I do not know. So whenever we say I do not know also, we are bringing the deep sleep here. We are going to sleep in fact, science has gone to a level that they want to hold I do not know itself as the core subject. That all the learning, there is this feeling, all the learning about the natural world and the psychological world originate from I do not know. That is the Rahu Grasta. That the deep sleep is the state from where all knowledge comes, but then they are reverential about it. They call it as subconscious and feel that all creativity comes from there. But here the Acharya shows that there is the real light of existence consciousness, which is beyond that darkness of ignorance. We will see how. Rahupat Riravi Tingal Yena Ulan Maya Muda. Ula Purul, the existence consciousness is covered up by Maya. In the Sanskrit verse, you have how that happens. That is Rahugrasta Divakarendra Sadrusho Maya Samachadana Sanmatra. There comes only a feeling of pure existence. If anybody asks, do you exist there or not? They will not say no. Yes, I existed is what everyone will say. Every individual will say. Sanmatra Karanop Samharanat. All the Karanas, all the Indriyas, they go inside the I do not know and go to sleep. They go into the Maya mode and go to sleep. Maya Samachadana. What is the experience of the individual there? He says that Pragvas Swapsamiti Prabodha Samaye Pratyabhyajnayate Pratyabhyajnayate. This Pratyabhijna is supposed to be recognition. There are the three concepts which we will have to see to unfold the Pratyabhijna or the Pratyabhijna. Pratyabhijna is recognition, is what is the word used. And the other two concepts we have to understand that Pratyabhijna is the Pratyaksha and Smriti. Pratyaksha is when we experience through the senses somebody. So let us say we see today being Christmas, let us say that we see the image of Jesus in front of us. That is, we are having the Pratyaksha. In normal terms, it is also called as simple jnana, simple sensory jnana or Pratyaksha. Then when that image is not there also before us, that since that image has gone inside us in the form of samskara, in the form of a vasana, you can recall it from the subconscious through some process called as memory. Through the process of memory, though the picture of Jesus is not there in front of us, we can recall the memory of Jesus through the process called as smriti. The memory part is there. Then the Pratyabhijna, somebody comes and shows me an image of Jesus and says, or the earlier photograph, he brings to the ground floor and shows to me that, have you seen this photograph before? And that time, the sensory experience is there, but it is supported by the smriti, by the memory, and I recognize that This is that Jesus photograph which I saw in the first floor. This is that Jesus photograph. When I say, that is called as pratyabhijna. Pratyabhijnayate. Interestingly, this recognition is used by one of the Western philosophers to show that everything is self-consciousness. Of course, he has taken from Vedanta. He's a German philosopher called Hegel. So he goes out to show that ultimately every consciousness is self-consciousness at the root. The Atma Swarupa Jnana at the root. But then, having completed the inner self-consciousness, he struggles a lot to bring about that self-consciousness in the outer area. Lot of struggle is there to show what are the various modes in which that self-consciousness becomes recognized. That he says that recognition of your self-consciousness is what completes the jnana according to him, or brings us to complete knowledge. But since he gives a lot of importance to the waking state alone, he has a lot of difficulty in equating that as self-recognition. But Acharya, like all Vedantins, treats the three states on the same footing. Waking, dream, deep sleep together are taken in the same footing. In fact, the waking is merged into dream, dream is merged into deep sleep, and deep sleep is now recognized as something that is temporal in the Atma Swarupa, that is real. But then coming to Pratyabhijna, that remember this, Pratyabhijna is what? It is the experience combined with the smriti, combined with the memory. We call it as recognition. When you recognize the self in everything, when you recognize the existence of the self in everything, there the self-knowledge is complete. You can understand this, that whatever may be the other experience, that is incidental, but one is always recognizing the presence of the self by self-attention or by the sahaja nishta. Then the knowledge is complete, or the existence consciousness is completely experienced. But let us see how logically the Acharya is going to use Pratyabhijna to prove that the self exists even in deep sleep. So what is the objective? The objective is to defeat the Pratama Malla. The Pratama Malla is the void arguer. The void arguer is saying that both the object and subject are not present in deep sleep. What is the goal of the Acharya? Goal of the Acharya is to prove that the Sanmatra is there, that the pure subject exists even in deep sleep. How is he going to prove that? That is Puravuran Ginananendru Bodhanam Evam Pumana. That is, on waking up, the individual recognizes that it is I who went to sleep, that it was I who existed before sleep, who went to sleep, experienced sleep, and it is the same I who is present here, not as the body, not as the indriyas, not definitely as the mind, not as the buddhi, not even as the individual identity which I had taken up, but as Sanmatra, as pure existence. That is why Bhagavan says in Upadesha Saram, Bhava Balatinal Bhavanatita Sadbhavatirtale Undipara Parabhakti Tattva Mundipara. Even in that verse, Bhagavan takes us to Sanmatra. How does he take us to Sanmatra? He says that Bhava Balatina, with the strength of the jiva only, with the strength of the limited consciousness only, what one has to do? Bhava Balatinal Bhavanatita. Let go of all the thoughts. Be free of all the thoughts. Sadbhavatil, that you exist, that alone you hold. So when you hold that in self-enquiry, what is that we are experiencing? We are experiencing consciously the deep sleep, or we are in Jagrat Shushupti, which is the same as Samadhi Sthiti. But then we are running ahead of ourselves. We still have to prove how the Acharya has proved that the individual, he realizes that It is the same I who was present before going to sleep. It is the same I who experienced sleep. It is the same I who is present now. Definitely not as the body, not as the prana, not as the indriya, not as the manobuddhi, but not even as the void. That I don't claim that I don't exist there, but I do exist as pure existence, sanmatraha. And that alone I am going to hold now in sadhana. Bhava balatinal bhavanatita sadbhavati. So the implication of this verse we can directly experience by practicing Atma Vichara, by practicing the Sanmatra, holding of the Sanmatra here itself. But then the Acharya proves that objectively, that through the concept called as Pratyabhijna. Pratyabhijna is recognition. To recognize that you are the one who existed before going to sleep, you were present in sleep, and you are present now. Therefore, it is you who are ever present. The waking, dream, sleep are all taken care of by the void arguer. They are all voided. But then he says, you are also, the subject is also not there. The Advaita doesn't agree with that. Says that the pure subject is Tanmaya Nishtai is ever present. Tanmaya Nishtai is the reality that is ever present, is the argument. And Bhagavan here adds something. He says that Charachara Guruvamanta. For the waking state and dream state, we can only realize that the self is present in living beings. But once we come to understand deep sleep, and when we are in pure existence, that the existence itself is consciousness. What does Ulladanarpadu say? Ulladanarpadu verse 1 says that Ulladala Ullavunar Ulladu. The meditator who is the Ullavunarvu, he is now addressed by the author of the work, saying that you are the Ullavunarvu. Now you want to meditate on the authority of this work called Ulladanarpadu. Can you exist? You are having the Unarvu, you want to meditate on something objectively. Can you exist? Forget about meditating. Can you exist apart from Ullapurul? You are calling yourself as Ulla Unarvu. When I ask you, do you know you exist? The Jiva says, yes, yes, I know I exist. So I exist is there, but have you inquired into from where do you get your existence? So as Ulla Unarvu, don't go behind that which is Jadam, that which is inert, but go after that which is the source of your very existence. Can you be, as Ulla Unarvu, be apart from the Ulla Purul? We will find that no, the Sanmatraha or the Tanmaya Nishtai will be the realization of the Ulla Unarvu by identifying or trying to seek the source from which I arise. So the solution to this verse will be found in Atma Vicharam, or through using the logic of the Acharya, saying that Sanmatra is proved here. But then Bhagavan introduces one more additional point here, that if the earlier two verses show the permeation of the living beings by the existence consciousness, this verse, which is meditating on deep sleep, Sanma, then pure existence, that existence itself is consciousness. The non-living beings are also permeated by the same consciousness. That the Atma is not only permeating the living beings, it is also permeating the non-living beings, the so-called non-living. All atoms which are said to be in deep sleep, the stones are said to be in deep sleep. Now, when you have the anubhava of existence in deep sleep, then you know that the stones are full of consciousness. You understand how Bhagavan replies to that lady. The stone slab on which you seated is full of consciousness, says Bhagavan. How does one realize that? One realizes that by going to the Sanmatra, the pure existence, completely rid of any need for objective support. Because if you take objective support, the void guy is going to come and demolish you. So defeating the void guy, the Prathamamalla, one comes to pure existence, and that, as Bhagavan beautifully puts it, reveals to you that this pure existence, the Sanmatra, permeates not only living beings, not only the so-called relatively conscious entities. It absolutely shows that everything is full of existence consciousness, because here that Sat itself is Chit. Sattaya Chit, Chittaya Aham. உள்ளதுணர உணர்வு வேறின்மையின் உள்ளதுணர்வாகும் உந்தி பெற உணர்வே நாமாயுளம் முந்தி பெற. In self-enquiry, what happens? One realizes that to know or to feel or to experience the உள்ள பொருள், can the உணர்வு be apart from it? If the உணர்வு is apart from it, it immediately generates deep sleep, waking and dream. If the moment the ulla unarvu, the chit separates itself from the sat, or imagines it can separate itself from the sat, all the three states suddenly come into being. But when it realizes that I have to completely subside, not even of this purana nature am I am merely or purely the sat eva, sanmatra. The sat alone is there. So sattaya hi chit, Chittaya Hyakam. That Sat itself is Chit, and that Sat itself is I. That is how the void arguer is defeated. That this is not void. Bhagavan says, Arivariyamayu Atradarivame. Ariyumadu Unmai Arivahadu Aridarkum Arivitharkum Anniyam Indrai Avirvadal Tan the self Arivahum. It is absolute knowledge. Paranrari. It can never be the void which is nothing. It is the essence of everything. The non-existence gets its existence from existence. It's not as complicated as the sentence shows. In Atma Vicharam, it is the direct experience that when the support of the Indriyas, with the support of the mind, with the support of the buddhi, when the support of the thoughts come up, what one has to do, one has to realize that one exists without any of these supports. That the self-attention is a priori. It exists without the support of any of these upadhis, and it definitely is not blank. We have already seen how Major Chadwick comes to Bhagavan with this blank. That he says that nowadays I am able to go to the thought-free state. But then sometimes there is the seeing of the darkness, and there is the feeling of fear. Not only is the darkness there, but then the emotion is also rising that I am feeling fear in me. And Bhagavan says that is because the Tanmaya Nishtai, you have not got Parichaya yet. The Tanmaya Nishtai is like a pure white, which only that whiteness can see. The moment you come out of that whiteness, you see the objects and the darkness. So the only way to see that is to be that. The moment you are reaching there, what will happen? A preceding state may come where some degree of outwardness is there, some degree of otherness is there that appears to be a blank or a darkness. That is, deep sleep may be considered to be a darkness or a blank. But then Bhagavan tells him, are you not present? Are you not present there to experience it? You are the experiencer. Hold the experiencer, hold the Tanmaya Nishta, that will go away. Now, the experience of the deep sleep, how Bhagavan explains in the talks, a little bit of that before we close. Bhagavan says it in two ways. That is, in one sense, he says that stop with the understanding that you existed before going to sleep, you existed in sleep, you exist now. So Sanmatra, that brings in the Advaita Anubhava. If one can be with Bhagavan there, that I was existing, not necessarily of the body or the Indriyas or the mind and the buddhi, which is going to be wired out, but I existed. I existed in deep sleep, I existed after that, I exist after that. To those who doubt it, Bhagavan would say, do you not say that you were happy? You had a very restful or a blissful or a happy sleep. Now, there is another way in which he would validate the existence of one in the sleep. He would say, the Johnson who goes to sleep wakes up as Johnson. The Venkatramanan who goes to sleep wakes up as Venkatramanan, not as Govindarajan. I think something like that he refers to in talks. We'll have to see the slight difference in the in the support given. If we remain merely with the Sanmatra, taking the Upadesha Saram verse where Bhagavan says that Bhava Balatinal Bhavanatita Sadbhava Tiruttale Vundipara, that being in the Sadbhavam, that I exist, if we can go with that, that is the Advaita Anubhavam. But then if you want the support of bliss or the support of identity, then how does that experience come? Bhagavan says in one of the talks that that means that the individuality continues. See, in mere Sadbhavam, the individuality does not continue. But if you want the support of the happiness of deep sleep, and if you want the support of the identity continuing, then you are taking the continuation of the individuality in deep sleep. The rest of the things support is not taken, let us say. Then you find Bhagavan explaining that in one of the talks. Then you will have to say that the individual is experiencing the bliss or the Atma Swarupam through the Maya mode. So you will have to introduce the Maya mode, and you will have to introduce that the individual is experiencing the self through Maya mode. What happens then? That is where we open up the Visishta Advaitam and Dvaitam arguments. That that is why the Advaitin, he joins the voider. If you remember that all the upadhis are voided out and the individuality is voided out, you jump to Advaita directly by using the voider, using the Rahu Grasta Divakarendra along with the void arguer, and show that the subject is not voided out. The subject is present as the pure self. But then if you want the support of the experience of bliss and the continuity of identity, then the deep sleep does not remove the individuality. You will have to now go with include the presence of the Visishta Advaitin and the Dvaitin, that the Jiva is part of the Ishvara, or all the three are three realities. We'll have to take that the reality is not voided by the pralaya, that it is not the end point, that the three realities continue or the Isha and Jiva continue. Those arguments become possible. But then what we used to share in satsang is that Bhagavan opens up those margas also, that those margas which allow surrender, they are opened up by saying that the individuality, Ishvara's individuality or individuality of the Jiva, continues in deep sleep. The moment you introduce that, then the Dvaitin also will come in and say that if you allow the individuality, then the Achara, the Acharam also you should give room. And he will say, I will also come in and say that all the three have realities. So this is the nitty-gritty in the argument about deep sleep, that we have to know all the three types, but then understand that in Atma Vicharam, we come to Sanmatram. We don't take the support of the Deham, Pranam, Mano, Buddhi, or the individuality in Atma Vicharam. There is a verse in Ulladhanarpadu where Bhagavan says, Tanmai Undel, Munnilai Padarpaigal, Tamulavam, தன்மையின் உண்மையை தானாய்ந்து தன்மையரின் முன்னிலை படர்க்கை முடிவுற்று ஒன்றாய் வளரும் தன்மையை தன்னிலை வைத்தான். That means in Bhagavan's teachings, the personality, the individuality cannot survive the deep sleep, or we have to understand it does not survive the deep sleep, because all the second and third persons arise only after the first person arises, And when you inquire into the truth of the first person, even though it may be the Ishvara Sthiti, that also merges into the Tanmaya Nishta. And the self alone is no individuality can be real. That is the teaching of Bhagwan. But while inquiring into this, we should know the possibilities we open up. That unless you void out the Upadhis, you don't come to Advaita. You open up all the three possibilities. So the explanation that is present in the talks, the support of Sanmatra, that alone we should take. The support of feeling that there is bliss, or the support of feeling that Nandakumar rises back as Nandakumar, need not be taken while practicing Atma Vicharam. Then we come from, in this verse, the third verse about the individual, where deep sleep is taken. We come to that self, which is the self of both Charam and Acharam, both forms with life and the so called forms without life. They are also completely permeated by the pure existence, the self, which alone is. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Let us sit in Atmavicharam till the moments left before 8 o'clock. Then we can listen to Shardaka. Ujjalji, you can set the time for us. Thank you.
Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana shining as a self. As usual, has been the grace for us through all these insights with Nandakumarji and all through this Dakshinamurthy Stotram. We got some real gems today as well. One of the gems that we got was that it should be the Mamalla who is attacked. The ultimate point, which here is denoted as the Shunya. Or it could be the final identification of the ego. Now, in this very point, actually, Bhagavan, in Ulladu Narpadu, Bhagavan has mentioned this point in another verse, Nanenriddeham naviladu, Urakattu, Nan inrendrarum navilvadilai. So Bhagavan says in deep sleep, nobody says I was non-existent in deep sleep. That is what is brought forth in this verse of the Dakshinamurthy Stotram. The non-existence in deep sleep is not acknowledged by anybody. Nobody says I was non-existent. And in fact, on the other hand, as Bhagavan says, and we were reminded through Nandakumarji, we say we were happy during that time. But again, this point of recognition of the deep sleep, indicating that there is one who recognizes. So that point is brought out to us by the Upadesha Saram verse, which we also meditated on last time, where Bhagavan says, Vigraha Indriya Pranadhi Tamaha Jadam. He says, Nahamekasa Tat Jadam. He says, Tamas or blank or sleep or nescience is also Jadam. It is insentient. So why is it called Jadam? It is called Jadam because it cannot declare itself. It cannot declare its own existence. So that's why Bhagavan in this also verse, it says, Nan indriddeham naviladu. The body does not say I. Similarly, the sleep also does not say it is I. If my nature is blank, that sleep should declare, the blank should declare it is I. It does not declare it is I. It cannot declare it is I. There is a necessity of a witness of a blank, or there is a necessity of the recall of the blank. Whenever there is an experience of so-called blank, whether it is in the laya, which Bhagavan would actually ask the other devotees to stop a devotee from getting into. One of the devotees is to get into the laya. Bhagavan used to ask Krishnatha Swami or others to wake him up before he gets into laya. So it is a blank, the blank experience is there. That is a different blank experience from the blank which was experienced by Chadwick, which was referred to. So that blank is also there, which is pure tamas, which is like deep sleep. But that tamas does not declare itself to us as I. So Bhagavan says it is jada. It is only recalled. It is only recalled. Only after waking up I can say that I had experienced a blank. It is only after passing over the shunya and coming back to a state of consciousness that one can say. If in the inner journey, it is only when one has questioned that blank. For whom is this blank? If there is identification with blank and a fear of the blank, It is only when that is questioned and transcended into the fullness that one can say, there was this blank. So during the blank, if I say I am experiencing the blank and therefore I am afraid, obviously there is an experiencer and an experience. Obviously there is the duality. Obviously the blank is then an object, one new identity with which we have become immersed, in which we have become immersed or which we have identified with. It is a new object. It's a subtle object. Like the Indriyas are gross objective experiences, the blank is a subtle objective experience with which we may be identified. Another way of looking at it could be that what we call blank, we do only from the waking state. It is, I say, I did not know anything in deep sleep based on my waking experience. I am judging deep sleep from only from my waking experience. I cannot judge deep sleep from deep sleep itself. Therefore, it is said to be jada. It cannot be that. When that is not the truth, therefore Bhagavan says, therefore it is the self is fullness. In the other verse also, which Nandakumar ji quoted for us, he says, na shunyam, that is not, it is never a void. But here in this verse, Bhagavan says, he talks about the Rahugrasta Divakara Indu Sadrisho. He talks about that which is the Rahu, the notional planet which eclipses the sun of the self, that is Nanondrezhunda pin ellam ezhum. So this notional I which is there, on the rising of the notional I, on the rising of this graha, this so-called graha called I, which it actually does not exist. In another sense, if you see, like the earth and the sun, the body and the self, one may say the body is there, it is jada. The self is there, it is unborn, it is eternal. Bhagavan says it in another verse of jada udal nan ennadu satchit udiyadu. So these two are there. But how come it is that one can say, I am the body? Ondru udikkum, something arises in between. That is eclipsing the self. So, the recognition that the eclipsing of the self is happening by this Maya, the Maya being something which appears to exist, which cannot therefore be denied, but which is actually not existing at all. So, that is what this I thought is. So, Bhagavan says, if one inquires into the source of this I thought or inquire into the nature of this I thought, then it disappears. Because if one understands, oh, which is the graha which is coming between me and the moon and eclipsing the moon, we understand, oh, it is only my own shadow. It is only my own shadow. The earth's shadow alone is eclipsing the moon. There is nobody there. There is no other entity over there. It is only a mere shadow. It is only a mere chaya. So it's called a chaya graha. So it's a mere shadow. This ego which rises within us is a mere shadow. When one recognizes this through inquiry, then Bhagavan says it melts away. It will disappear. But the inquiry into this last point, because we can easily understand that the senses, the body is actually lighted by something. We can easily see that the mind lights the body, so the body is jada. We can see that the thoughts, so where Bhagavan says Vigraha, Indriya, Prana, so all this is lighted by the dhi. We can see that. Therefore, we can say, oh, all this is jada. And then we may say, coming to the last mala, even the dhi is not supreme because it disappears in deep sleep. This I, this mind, it disappears in deep sleep into the blank. So it is not supreme either. That argument is also available to us and it is very visible to us. But that the fact that the blank is not I, that the I cannot be blank, it is the fullness, has to be understood. First, of course, logically, using this beautiful logic which has been given to us, the logic of recognition, the logic of the fact that it is jada because it cannot declare itself to be the truth. In every instance, Bhagavan only says, even about the body, he says about his father, when the father died, if the body was the truth, it should have got up and said, don't cremate me. He should have said that it didn't do it, so it is jada. Similarly, the blank is jada, it is tamas, is jada because it does not declare itself. It does not make itself self evident. It is known to that consciousness alone. And often I give the example which is given in which we use in one of our plays, where the protagonist is asked a question, what do you see on stage? So many items are there which are seen on stage, and then everything is taken away from the stage, and then she's asked, what do you see? She says, there's nothing, it is empty. Then the questioner, who is I, asks her, don't you see the light? Don't you see the light? She says, of course I see the light. So then he tells her, see, when things were there, you saw the things. You didn't see the light by which the things were seen. And when things are not there, you say you see the absence of things. You do not see the light, which is present all the time. You only see the presence or the absence of things. Therefore, you say this is full, this is empty, but the light is all the fullness. So, this is the beautiful instances and examples which are being given to us to lead us back to the actual experience. Because in the sadhana, like Major Chadwick, many of us may encounter that blank, or else there may be a subtle fear in us that we will hit a blank through self inquiry. If that fear is to be countered, we have to understand that our true nature is fullness. Have that faith in the words of the great ones of Bhagavan, of the Acharya over here. And with that faith, when we dive in, we will understand and will be able to transcend the blank into the fullness of the self. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Namo Ramana. Namo Ramana to all.